I kissed him in the parking lot of the conference hotel, and I knew exactly what I was doing. My husband David was at home with our 2 kids, probably making dinosaur-shaped pancakes and letting them watch cartoons in their pajamas. And I was pressing myself against a man whose last name I'd learned 3 days ago, my conference lanyard still around my neck, my wedding ring catching the parking lot lights. I told myself it was just a kiss. That's what I kept repeating in my head as Marcus ran his hands down my back. Just a kiss. David would never know. I deserved this. I deserve to feel wanted like this, desired like this, chosen like this. We've been together 11 years. Married for 8. I was 22 when we met, 25 when we got married, and now at 33, I looked at my life and wondered if this was all there was. David was a good man. Everyone said so. He worked from home as a software engineer, did bedtime routines, remembered to buy the specific yogurt our daughter liked. He was stable. Reliable. Boring. God, he was so boring. That's what my friend Jess kept saying. We'd meet for wine on Thursday nights, and she'd scroll through dating apps showing me all these men with motorcycles and beach photos and adventure stories. She'd been divorced for 2 years and called it her freedom era. She'd look at photos of David at our backyard barbecues, in his polo shirt and cargo shorts, dad jokes ready, and she'd say, "Girl, you're too young to be living like you're 60. And I started to believe her. I started noticing how David cleared his throat the same way every morning. How he told the same stories at parties. How he gained weight and stopped caring. How sex became a routine, something that happened on Saturday nights if we weren't too tired, missionary position, 15 minutes, done. I started feeling invisible. Marcus noticed me on day 1 of the conference. He complimented my presentation. He sat next to me at lunch. He laughed at my jokes and looked at me like I was fascinating, like every word out of my mouth mattered. He was a marketing director from Seattle, recently divorced, runner's build, salt and pepper hair. He talked about hiking and travel and took me seriously when I mentioned wanting to get back into photography. By day 2, we were having dinner together. Day 3, drinks at the hotel bar until 2 a.m., his hand on my knee under the table. I texted David that the conference sessions were running late. He sent back a thumbs up and a photo of our son's Lego tower. Day 4 was the parking lot. Day 5 was his hotel room. I told myself it was just physical. Just scratching an itch. That it didn't mean anything. That plenty of people did this and their marriages survived. That David didn't need to know because it would only hurt him, and what was the point of that? I flew home on Sunday. Marcus and I exchanged numbers. We'd been texting constantly, planning when we could see each other again. My phone was always face down now. I changed my passcode. I went to the bathroom to text him, stayed up after David fell asleep to text him, checked my messages first thing every morning. David noticed I seemed happier. He thought maybe the conference had energized me about work. He suggested we plan a family vacation, maybe to the beach. I smiled and said that sounded great while Marcus was texting me about a hotel in Portland where we could meet up in 3 weeks. The thing about lying is that it gets easier. The first lie is hard. The second one comes quicker. By the 10th, you forget you're even doing it. I lied about working late. Lied about girls' nights. Lied about where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. I looked my husband in the eyes and lied to his face, then went upstairs and kissed our kids goodnight with those same lips. I compartmentalized. That's the word, right? I put Marcus in one box and my family in another, and I genuinely believed I could keep them separate. That I could have both. That I was sophisticated enough, evolved enough, strong enough to manage this. Marcus and I met in Portland. Then again in San Francisco. He started talking about his feelings. About how special this was. About how he'd never connected with anyone like this. And I ate it up. I took photos of us together, carefully cropped to hide my wedding ring. I let myself imagine a different life. Jess knew. She covered for me twice. She said I seemed alive again, that she hadn't seen me this happy in years. She asked if I'd thought about leaving David. And here's the truth, I had. I'd started thinking about it constantly. What it would look like. How I'd tell him. We'd split custody 50-50, right? I'd get an apartment, something modern and downtown, not this suburban house with a playset in the backyard. The kids would adjust. Kids always adjust. And I'd finally get to live my life, not the life I'd stumbled into at 22 before I even knew who I was. I started pulling away from David without even realizing it. I was irritated by everything he did. The way he breathed. The way he chewed. When he tried to initiate sex, I'd pretend to be asleep or say I was exhausted. When he tried to talk about his day, I'd scroll on my phone. When he suggested date night, I'd find an excuse. Our daughter Emma asked me one night why I didn't smile anymore when Daddy talked. She was 7. 7 years old, and she could see what I was doing to him. I told her I was just tired from work. Another lie. Marcus started pushing for more. He wanted me to leave David. He said what we had was real, that we shouldn't waste time, that life was short. He sent me apartment listings in Seattle. He talked about how the kids would love it there, how there were great schools, how he'd help me co-parent. And I started to actually consider it. I made spreadsheets. I looked up custody laws. I calculated what child support would look like. I fantasized about telling David the first wanted a divorce, about his face, about finally being free. Then Marcus got weird. He started asking why I hadn't left yet. Getting frustrated when I said I needed time. He'd go cold for days, not texting back, punishing me. Then he'd come back with apologies and promises. The hot and cold thing should have been a red flag the size of Texas, but I was in too deep. I'd blown up my marriage in my head already. I'd already detached. I stopped having sex with David completely. I stopped sitting next to him on the couch. I stopped asking about his day. I stopped pretending. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Are you okay?" he asked one night after the kids were in bed. "You seem really distant lately." "I'm fine," I said, not looking up from my phone. Marcus was texting me about meeting up next weekend. "Are we okay?" David asked, and there was something in his voice that made me finally look at him. He looked scared. This man who had given me 11 years, 2 children, a whole life, looked scared of my answer. "We're fine," I lied. We weren't fine. I was actively destroying us, and he could feel it but couldn't prove it. Until he could. I got sloppy. That's what happens when you lie for months. You start to believe you're invincible. You start to think you're smarter than everyone else. I'd been texting Marcus at home more. I'd stopped being as careful with my phone. I'd come home from work late with hotel shampoo smell in my hair. I'd smiled at my phone in front of David, then caught myself and turned cold. One night, I left my phone on the bathroom counter while I showered. I'd gotten a text from Marcus. Something explicit about what he wanted to do to me the next time we met. My phone was unlocked. I'd been texting and had set it down. David saw it. I came out of the shower, and he was sitting on the edge of our bed, my phone in his hand, his face completely blank. Not angry. Not crying. Blank. That's what I remember most. How empty he looked. "How long?" he asked. His voice was quiet. Steady. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd throw up. "David, How long?" I couldn't speak. My mouth opened but nothing came out. Water dripped from my hair onto the carpet. He stood up, still holding my phone. He scrolled, not looking at me. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. He read for what felt like hours. Every message. Every photo. Every plan Marcus and I had made. 6 months, he finally said. Not a question. A statement. "You've been seeing him for 6 months." I wanted to lie. The urge was automatic. But what was the point? He had everything right there. "Yes," I whispered. He nodded slowly, like he was confirming something he'd already suspected. He set my phone down on the dresser, carefully, like it was fragile. Then he walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. "David, please, we need to talk." "No." His voice was still quiet. He was pulling clothes from hangers, folding them mechanically. "We don't." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." He stopped and turned to look at me, and for a second, I saw rage flash across his face. Real, deep rage. But then it was gone, replaced by that terrible emptiness. "It didn't mean anything," he repeated. 6 months. You looked me in the eyes every single day for 6 months and lied. You kissed our kids goodnight with the same mouth you used on him. You slept next to me after being with him. And it didn't mean anything. "David, please. Do you love him?" The question hung in the air. I should have said no. I should have said I loved David, that I'd made a mistake, that we could fix this. But I hesitated. For just a second, I hesitated. That second told him everything. "You need to leave," he said, turning back to the suitcase. "This is my house too. You need to leave this room? Right now. Before I say things I can't take back." His hands were shaking as he zipped the suitcase. "I'm taking the kids to my parents tomorrow. I'll be gone for a week. When I come back, you and I will have one conversation about how this divorce is going to work. That's it." "Divorce?" "David, we can work through this. There is no working through this. He picked up the suitcase and walked past me like I wasn't even there. I will never forgive you for this. Never. You destroyed us. You destroyed what we built. And you destroyed our kids' family. For what? For some guy you barely know? He stopped at the bedroom door. I knew something was wrong. For months, I knew. You stopped looking at me. You stopped touching me. You became a stranger in our house. And I told myself I was imagining it. That you were just stressed. That we'd get through it. His voice cracked. I was going to surprise you next week. I'd booked us a trip to Napa. For our anniversary. I'd arranged childcare. I'd planned this whole thing to remind you why we fell in love. I started crying. Huge, gasping sobs. I loved you, he said. Past tense. I loved you more than I've ever loved anything. I would have done anything for you. And you threw it away like it was garbage. He walked out. I heard him go into the guest room and close the door. The lock clicked. I stood there in my towel, dripping, crying, and I realized what I'd done. I'd won. I'd gotten what I wanted. I was about to be free. And it felt like dying. David told the kids on Saturday morning. I wasn't there. He'd asked me to stay upstairs while he talked to them. I heard Emma start crying through the floor. I heard my son Lucas, who was only 5, asking why. Why was Daddy leaving? Why couldn't we all stay together? I heard David's voice, low and steady, saying something I couldn't make out. Then Emma's voice, louder, I want Mommy. I started down the stairs. David appeared at the bottom, his face hard. No, he said. You don't get to comfort them right now. You did this. Let them feel it. He went back into the living room. I sat on the stairs and listened to my children cry. They left an hour later. Emma wouldn't look at me when David brought them out with their little suitcases. Lucas hugged me, but it was mechanical, like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to. David didn't say a word. He loaded them into his car and drove away. The house was silent. I called Marcus. I needed someone. I needed to hear that this was all going to be okay, that we'd get through this, that I'd made the right choice. He didn't answer. I texted him. Told him David knew. That I was getting divorced. That we could finally be together for real. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, I think we should cool things off for a while. I stared at my phone. What? This is moving too fast. You're going through a divorce. You have kids. I don't think I'm ready for that level of complication. Complication? Marcus, we've been planning this. I wasn't actually planning anything. I thought you knew this was just. I didn't think you'd actually leave him. I called him. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent 10 texts in a row, each one more desperate than the last. He blocked me. The man I'd destroyed my marriage for, the man I'd lied to my husband for, the man I'd betrayed my children for, blocked me. I sat on my couch, in the house I'd shared with David, surrounded by photos of our family, and I laughed. I actually laughed. Because it was so absurd. So perfectly, horribly absurd. Then I threw up. Jess came over that night. I'd called her sobbing. She brought wine and told me it was going to be okay, that Marcus was a jerk, that I deserved better. You told me to do this, I said. You said I deserved to be happy. I didn't tell you to blow up your marriage, she said, but there was something guilty in her eyes. I thought you guys could work it out, or that David was already checked out too. He wasn't. He loved me. He was planning an anniversary trip. She didn't know what to say to that. She left around midnight. I drank the rest of the wine by myself. David came back a week later, alone. The kids were still with his parents. He had a lawyer with him. We sat at the dining room table, the same table where we'd had 1,000 family dinners, and we negotiated the end of our marriage. He wanted primary custody. He had texts I'd sent Marcus where I'd complained about the kids being exhausting, about how I fantasized about life without the constant demands of motherhood. Messages where I'd said I couldn't wait to get away from them for our hotel meetups. My own words, used against me. You're not taking my kids, I said. I'm not taking them. They're mine too. But you checked out of parenting 6 months ago. Emma told me you forgot her parent-teacher conference. Lucas said you've been letting him watch TV during dinner because you're always on your phone. You think I didn't notice? I didn't have an argument. It was all true. We settled on 60-40. He got the most of the time. I got every other weekend and 1 night a week. I went from seeing my kids every day to seeing them 6 days a month. The house had to be sold. David moved in with his parents temporarily. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. Not the modern downtown place I'd fantasized about. A cheap apartment with beige carpet and thin walls, because divorce is expensive and I was about to be paying child support. My friends started dropping off one by one. First it was a couple friends, the ones we'd known together. They chose David. Of course they chose David. He was the one who'd been betrayed. I was the villain. Then it was my own friends. Some of them gently. They'd text less, be busy more, until eventually we just stopped talking. Some of them directly. One friend, Sarah, sent me a message, "I can't support what you did. I have kids. I can't imagine doing that to them. I'm sorry, but I can't be around you right now." Jess stuck around for a month. Then she met a guy, got serious fast, and suddenly had less time. Then no time. Last I heard, she's engaged. She didn't invite me to the engagement party. Work got uncomfortable. People knew. Someone from David's company knew someone at my company, and it spread. People who used to eat lunch with me started eating without me. I wasn't invited to happy hours anymore. Nobody said anything directly, but I felt it. The judgment. The coldness. I was the woman who cheated on her husband. The woman who broke up her family. The woman who chose some random guy over her kids. My first weekend with Emma and Lucas was horrible. They were quiet. Polite. It was worse than if they'd been angry. Emma looked around the apartment like she couldn't believe this was where I lived now. Lucas kept asking when they could go back to Daddy's. I tried to make it fun. I took them to the park, made their favorite dinner, let them stay up late watching movies. But there was a wall between us that hadn't been there before. On Sunday, when David came to pick them up, Emma hugged him like she'd been drowning and he was air. She barely waved goodbye to me. I closed the door and cried for 2 hours. The divorce was finalized 4 months after that night David found the texts. We'd been together 11 years. It took 4 months to erase all of it. I tried dating. God, what a disaster. I downloaded apps. Went on dates with men who had no idea what they wanted or who were clearly just looking for sex. I went on a date with one guy who asked about my kids, and when I explained the custody arrangement, he just said, "Oh," and I could see him doing the math. See him figuring out what I'd done. There was no second date. I tried to reach out to David once. I sent him a long email about how sorry I was, about how I'd made a terrible mistake, about how I wanted to try again. He responded, "Please only contact me about the children. Anything else will go through my lawyer." I deserved that. I knew I deserved that. But it still hurt. The worst part is the little moments. When Emma got into the school play and forgot to tell me. When Lucas learned to ride his bike and I wasn't there. When David got a girlfriend, a nice woman named Rachel who teaches 2nd grade, and my kids started mentioning her casually. Rachel made us pancakes. Rachel took us to the zoo. Rachel taught me to braid. Rachel gets to be there. Rachel gets to have what I threw away. I saw them all together once, by accident. I was at the grocery store and they walked in, David and Rachel holding hands, Emma between them, Lucas riding on David's shoulders. They were laughing about something. They looked like a family. David saw me. Our eyes met. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked nothing. Like I was a stranger. Like those 11 years, those 2 kids, that whole life we built together was just something that happened to someone else. He walked past me without saying a word. I stood in the cereal aisle and I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because that's when it fully hit me. I didn't just lose my marriage. I didn't just lose my kids half the time. I lost my place in the story. Rachel is the one they'll remember at Emma's graduation. Rachel is the one who will be in the family photos. Rachel is the one who gets to build a life with the man I loved. And I'm the woman who ruined everything. I'm the woman who had it all and threw it away because I was bored. Because I wanted excitement. Because some man at a conference paid attention to me and I decided that was worth more than my family. My daughter looks at me differently now. She's not a baby. She understands enough. She knows I'm the reason Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. She knows I'm the reason everything changed. Last week, she asked me why I did it. She's 8 now. 8 years old and asking her mother why she destroyed their family. I tried to explain. I tried to say I was unhappy, that I made a mistake, that adults are complicated. She just looked at me with these big, sad eyes and said, "But we loved you." Wasn't that enough? I didn't have an answer. Because the truth is, it should have been. This little girl, my son, my husband who made dinosaur pancakes and remembered the specific yogurt and planned anniversary trips, they loved me. They gave me everything. And it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted to feel special. I wanted adventure. I wanted to feel young and desired and free. And now I'm free. I'm free in my beige apartment with the thin walls. I'm free 6 days a month when I have my kids and they treat me like an obligation. I'm free when I eat dinner alone and nobody texts me and I scroll through photos of my old life like I'm looking at someone else's family. I'm free to watch David build a new life without me. Free to see my kids call another woman's house home. Free to know that I did this, that this is my fault, that there's nobody to blame but myself. People say time heals everything. It's been a year and a half. Nothing has healed. The wound is still open. It's still bleeding. I wake up every single day and the first thought in my head is what I did. The first feeling is regret so deep it's like drowning. I go to bed every night in a bedroom that's not mine, in a life that's not mine, and I know I did this to myself. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just been honest with David before Marcus. If I told him I was unhappy. If I'd suggested counseling. If I'd tried literally anything else before I blew everything up. But I didn't. I chose the easy thing. The exciting thing. I chose to lie and sneak and betray instead of being brave enough to fix what was broken. And now I get to live with that forever. My daughter doesn't want to sleep over anymore. She says it's because my apartment is small, but I know the truth. She doesn't want to be with me. My son is getting older, starting to understand more, and I see him looking at me sometimes with questions in his eyes that he's not old enough to ask yet. One day he will ask. One day he'll want to know why I left. Why I hurt his dad. Why I chose a stranger over them. And I won't have a good answer. Because there isn't one. I thought I was strong enough to cheat and move on. I thought I was sophisticated enough to handle it. I thought I could have my cake and eat it too, keep my family and still get that rush of new romance, that feeling of being wanted. I was wrong about everything. I wasn't strong. I was weak. I wasn't sophisticated. I was selfish. And I didn't get to keep anything. I lost it all. The man I cheated with ghosted me before the divorce was even filed. The life I fantasized about doesn't exist. The freedom I thought I wanted feels like prison. And the family I destroyed? They're doing fine without me. That's what keeps me up at night. Not that they're suffering. But that they're not. That David is happy with Rachel. That my kids are adjusting. That life went on without me like I was never essential to it in the first place. Because that's the thing nobody tells you about blowing up your life. You think you're irreplaceable. You think they'll fall apart without you. You think you're the center of the story. But you're not. Life goes on. People heal. They move forward. They build new families and make new memories and learn to be happy again. And you're just the person who used to be there. The person they mention in therapy. The reason they have trust issues. The mistake they learned from. I'm 35 now. Single. Living in an apartment I hate. Seeing my kids 6 days a month if I'm lucky. No friends. No partner. No second chances. This is what I traded my family for. This is what I thought would make me happy. If I could go back to that parking lot at the conference hotel, I would run. I would get on the plane and go home to my boring husband in his cargo shorts and I would kiss him and mean it. I would hug my kids and be present. I would delete Jess's number and stop listening to people who want me to be as miserable as they are. But I can't go back. None of us can. We only go forward, carrying the weight of our choices. And my choice weighs everything. So this is my warning, if anyone is reading this and thinking about doing what I did, about having that affair, about lying to your partner, about chasing that excitement, don't. It's not worth it. Nothing is worth it. That rush of new romance, that feeling of being desired, that fantasy of a different life, it's all vapor. It disappears the second reality hits. And reality hits hard. You don't just lose your partner. You lose your kids' respect. You lose your friends. You lose your place in the world. You lose the future you could have had. You lose the person you thought you were. And you gain nothing but regret so heavy it crushes you every single day. I thought I was strong enough to cheat and move on. I wasn't ready for what it destroyed. And now I have to live in the wreckage for the rest of my life, knowing I'm the one who lit the match.